Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm taking a look at the Artemisia 6-scale figure by Star Ace Toys from 300 Rise of an Empire. Let's see how she turned out. Alright, let's take a look at that box art. As in previous releases from their 300 line, Star Ace has chosen to go with a partially lenticular front. The imagery is of Eva Green in the role of Artemisia. They chose not to go with a photograph of the figure. That's no big surprise though, given the fact that they went with photographs of the characters themselves in all their previous releases. All the text is tastefully placed and tastefully sized, nothing overshadowing any part of the artwork. And just like with the previous releases from this line, I'm really digging the color palette that they chose to go with. Very evocative of the film itself. Getting inside the box and taking a look at what comes with the figure, I'm mostly impressed. I think that we've got a nice array of accessories here with the two swords, the dagger, the bow and arrow. The costume looks pretty good. We're going to notice right away that the skirt, for lack of a better word, is wired, so you're going to be able to pose that and make it look dramatic or just tasteful, whichever your taste is concerned. I'm a bit bothered by this breastplate, but it's on a par with the previous releases from the line. The details are kind of soft, but any more, and you probably would have been paying even more for this figure, and nobody really wants that. Now, the portrait. Initial impressions are it's not great. It's not terrible though either. There are certain angles where you can definitely see Eva Green in there, and overall I'm pretty happy with it. You're going to find out later on down the line that this figure is best viewed from below, and I'll show you why later on. I have quite a few notes on posing here. The first thing that you're going to notice when you take her out of the box and set her upright is that, like a few other figures from Star Ace and other companies, the boots on this one are not articulated whatsoever. They are just a solid piece of plastic. That means you're not going to be able to get a great range of motion when it comes to, say, deep stances. Having said that, I'm going to try to do it here anyway. We'll see how successful I am. But first, let's take a look at those far off arms. See what I'm pointing out there? Those vambraces. Posing note, when you're playing with those, when you twist the arm, make sure that you keep that vambrace parallel to the top of her hand. If you rotate the hand in any way without a corresponding twist of the vambrace, it's just going to look sloppy. Once you switched out the hands and actually replaced them with the hands that are meant to be holding the blades, you're going to notice that the blades will not go into the hand as they come situated. You need to pull the pommel off of each hilt in order to slide the hilt into the grip rather, into the hand, and then put that pommel back onto the sword. One issue that I ran into, and I'm not sure if it's going to be something that happens across the run of the figures, is that the left hand seemed to be quite a bit smaller in terms of diameter of the grip, to the extent that, as you can see here, I really had to work the sword into the hand in order to get it to fit, to go all the way in. I suspect this is because Star Ace really wanted that hand to be a little bit of a midway between the grip for the dagger and the grip for the sword. The downside of this, I suspect, is that the longer you leave that sword in that hand, the more that hand is likely to stretch out. Eventually, the dagger will fit looser in that hand than probably you would like. Some people might find that to be a real detriment to their decision to purchase the figure. I don't. I'm not bothered by things like that. There are fixes. There are things that you can do to fix that. That's nothing that, for instance, a little bit of museum putty won't fix. Now, moving on to the posing. We wanted to get her into a little bit of a deep stance here. You're going to notice right away that when you bend her legs, even there through the hosiery that she has going on, you're going to see those knee joints. That's not a problem. That's only going to be noticeable while you're actually posing the figure because, as I noted before, we have a wired skirt that we're going to be able to pose over those knees and hide those joints. It's still going to look good when we get done, trust me. Speaking of joints and points of articulation, I wanted to point out the best way to maneuver these arms at the shoulder. They're pretty tight, so you're going to want to grip them similarly to the way that I am and make sure that you're applying pressure as close to that joint as possible. You don't want to provide so much leverage by bending it from further down the arm that you wind up snapping the joint or otherwise doing harm to the figure. Again, this isn't a problem. It's designed that way, and you want those joints to be stiff so that they remain so over time. Another thing to note is that that shoulder joint, as you're bending it out and away, is ratcheted. And that's, of course, to your benefit as well. It'll take more time for that to wear out, if it ever wears out, and I don't suspect that it will. Notice how it just kind of pops, pop, pop. It goes pop, pop, pop as I'm moving it there. If I appear to be struggling at this point when it comes to hitting the pose, it's because I am. It's not uncommon for me to get a hold of a figure for the first time, and without taking the time to familiarize myself with the body and its eccentricities, I'll wind up just having to experiment with it just to see what it'll do and how it'll look. Now, just totally off the subject, I'm going to just show you a really quick clip here of how to get that dagger into the hand. See how it comes apart there, similarly to the swords? Very easy, it's a great way of engineering the thing to meet your needs. I'm glad that they did it this way. It minimizes the risk of doing damage to either the blade or the hand. But yeah, getting back to this issue of posing the figure, you'll notice that the hands, the way that the swords grip the hands, your hands, if you're actually holding swords, are going to be a little bit more flexible with the way that they hold them so that you can pose them in your own hand and make them look really cool. Long story short, just take your time and make it work. Now, speaking of taking your time and making it work, rooted hair might very well be my kryptonite. Capes used to be my kryptonite. These days, it's rooted hair, since I'm playing with more female figures than I was in the past. I've had a lot of fellow collectors suggest to me that I should try using like a pomade, like a bona fide pomade that you would actually use on your own hair. In reading the notes that came from Star Ace along with this figure, and other figures as well, I'm hesitant to do that. I think that over time, the chemicals in those pomades may break down the quality of this artificial hair. And that's not something that I'm willing to risk for the sake of posing something quicker or, I don't know, more pristine. I kind of like a little bit of the wild, maybe not too much, maybe not as much as what I've got going on right here, but I'm finding that if I just take my time and just gently smooth the hair down and just strategically tuck any stray strands underneath the bulk of the hair, that I can achieve enough of a desirable effect with the hair that it is pretty much decent to look at. Having said that, please keep in mind that what you're seeing here in the close-up demonstration is not the final product. So there it is, pretty much. Not brilliant, not my best work, but it gives you an idea of at least something that you can pull off with this figure, even with its limitations. So if you're wanting to get a dynamic pose out of Artemisia, you can certainly do so. Frankly, though, I'm just not that into it. I think this is a figure that will do much better posed in a museum-style pose, or just something more provocative or evocative. Look to some of those promotional images for the movie for reference, like that shot that I just showed you of her with the bow and arrow. Or just, instead of having her battling Themistocles, just have her ready to do battle with Themistocles, holding both swords in a ready stance, like she's preparing or she's just taunting him from afar. Or even this, which showcases her, not so much stealthiness, but just the wily way that she manipulates in that whole assassination bit that she did at the beginning of the film. But something like this, it's, while cool, you can pull it off, again, and there we go. There's one instance where the portrait, I think, actually genuinely works. You can see the silhouette of Eva Green right there. If I were to make two suggestions about this portrait, one would be that Eva Green is a good deal more gaunt than the person that we're seeing here in this image. On top of that, I think her head is a good deal smaller, but don't let either of those things deter you from picking this figure up. Overall, I think it's a fine addition to the 300 line, especially properly lit and viewed from below. Hope you enjoyed the review and the photos. Let me know what you think, and until next time, be good to your plastic.